What's going on, guys? It is JR with JR Off Air. It'd be a little weird if it was somebody else with JR Off Air. But anyway, today's guest is super cool. I'm very excited for you guys to get to know her and get to meet her. She is a TV host. She is a spokesperson. She is a professional wakeboarder, and she is a cancer survivor. Her story is pretty incredible. If you're a Vikings fan, you're really going to like her. But she is very cool, very down to earth, and I'm kind of fascinated by her whole entire career. I'm going to let her tell you about it. Her name is Alexa Score, and she is on JR Off Air. Joined today by Alexa Score. Good morning. How are you?
Doing well. Yeah. Thanks for having me on.
I am excited to have you on. I'm kind of fascinated by your career and your life story and everything like that. So first, let's start from the get-go. Where are you from? Born and raised? Talk to me about that.
Loaded question, but born and raised in Spicer, Minnesota. It's a small town, 100 miles west of Minneapolis, kind of in the middle of nowhere, 1,000 people. Grew up on a beautiful lake out there. It's kind of a little resort town, hidden gem. So fell in love with the water at a very young age, no matter what it was, fishing, water skiing, just floating. It didn't really matter. I mean, honestly, just
Right.
as a fish.
Right.
But as you know, our summers are pretty short, being only 3 months long. So time on the water was sparse.
Yeah.
And so went to a small high school, was a gymnast. At 16 was diagnosed with leukemia. So battled that, went through some really weird times with that. And then just.
What were the early signs of that? Like, when did you figure like, okay, there's something going on here?
So I had been having bone pain for months. And I grew up with just my dad. It was just he and I in the small town, and he's a hard ass and not the most sympathetic father figure.
Kind of toughen it up type thing.
Yeah. So I had told him, expressed many times, that I was in a lot of pain. Right. To which he was like, yeah, we'll wait it out. We'll wait. Going to the doctor's too much work. Didn't want to pay for it. It's like, we'll just wait it out. We'll wait it out. We'll wait it out. So it was the bone pain that had been going on for probably like 6 months. That was my first and pretty much only symptom that I can remember. I don't remember being fatigued, besides because of the pain, being kind of out of it. Then I ended up having a little accident where I hit my head and I got 11 stitches in my forehead. And my mom, who had been begging me to go to the doctor, came with me when I got my stitches out. And she basically begged the emergency room doctor just to do a blood panel. Okay. And he really didn't want to. He was just he checked. I told him about my bone pain. He's like, you're having muscle spasms. That's just all it is. And she's like, please just do a blood panel. Like, this isn't hard, just cover our bases. And sure enough, my white blood cell count was through the roof. And then from there, it was just a bunch of different testing and going to different doctors and figuring it out.
Did that seem real to you when you found out about that? Or was that kind of one of those things like, wait, what do you mean I have leukemia?
Totally real. Because I was like, I've known something was so wrong. Yeah. For a long time. And I mean, leukemia is very intense. It's a very, and so I don't mean to, that might be a little facetious of me to say, and I don't mean to put down how severe it is. Because certainly when they tell you, they sit you down and they tell you you have leukemia, it's a very intense moment. And, your head goes, as a 16-year-old, you only know so much about those types of things. And so your head goes to your first, memory, or what you have, your knowledge of it. And for me, that was like pennies for patients, bald kids, kids without hair, and kids dying, and the stuff that, the charity stuff that you did in school. So
the St. Jude type stuff.
Yeah, totally. Gotcha. Which is accurate. So, I mean, it was certainly intense, but I had known for so long that I was sick. It was kind of this see, guys,
Oh
I
man.
wasn't lying, like that kind of moment. And also a relief, like, okay, now we can make progress. Now we can do something about this versus like just not knowing what it is. And then you can't do anything about it.
Wow. I mean, I just, I think about being 16 and trying to figure out myself in general. And then you have something that's like just insane that happens to you like that, where there's a lot of uncertainty in life, really, when it comes to that.
Oh, totally.
So when you were at
Yeah.
16, I know procedures have changed so much. Like, what was the plan of attack when you were 16 when it came to you having leukemia? Like, what was?
So for this type of leukemia, average age of diagnosis is 65 years old. So when doctors diagnose this, their goal generally is to keep people alive for 10 years because people living to 75 is pretty good. For me at 16, it was really weird that I had this kind of leukemia. They obviously wanted me to live longer than 10 years.
Yeah.
At the time, basically the only treatment was bone marrow transplant, which at that time, 15 years ago was pretty dangerous still. And it may or may not work, but it actually would cure you of your leukemia and just leave you with a number of other not so fun diseases.
Okay.
Because of this procedure. And if you survive the procedure at all. And I just so happened to be incredibly lucky to have went to this doctor who knew of this relatively experimental drug called Gleevec that treated just my kind of leukemia. And he thought, this is worth a shot because if you can avoid transplant, we want to do that. Even if this drug just buys you some time until something else is developed. And I ended up going on this medication, getting super sick, so sick that they thought the medication was going to kill me. But we stuck with it. There were a couple weeks where it was like every day, do we stop it? Do we keep going? Do we stop? And we just kept going long enough where my side effects slowly lessened and lessened. And I'm still on that medication 15 years later. So
what's it? Is that something that your body gets used to, or is it still wear you down big time, or you get sick on it, or like how does that work? I excuse my ignorance on it, but
no, I would never expect anyone to know. It's a little of everything you just said. So initially, I got crazy sick because it was working so fast. Mm-hmm. So it was getting rid of the cancer so fast, and so I've got all this junk. Right? Like my body's in overdrive. It's working really hard, killing cancer. And then I've got all this junk in my blood and whatever. And plus then the side effects of this oral chemotherapy, which is pretty intense. So getting all my counts, my white blood cell count, dropping from astronomical levels to normal made me very sick. Once all of that stabilized, the cancer count stabilized. Then I still had those really severe those severe side effects every day from the medication. Those over years' time lessened. I still have some really annoying side effects like, water retention, puffy eyes. I have vitiligo around my eyes, which is like just loss of pigment. Some really minor bone pain here and there. Fatigue, yes. And then I take an anti-nausea medication with the medication, so I can keep it down. But for the most part, they're just like annoying little side effects, but it's a pretty small price to pay. I take a pill and live.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And it's funny, is I can't obviously relate to having cancer, but I've had numerous head injuries through sports and, knocked myself out wakeboarding, snowboarding, on a motorcycle, like on and on and on. And it was kind of experimental. And then once again, I want to say this is not the same as leukemia. I'm just giving you what you just said right there. What you just said right there is it's annoying. Like I take medication every day to help boost the side of my brain that has been damaged and might cause anxiety. Or like the way they explained it to me was, you're going to take, and this is when it was experimental too, before NFL players started going and talking about CTE and all that. It's all before that.
Gotcha. Okay.
I was going to a cognitive therapist and he's like, hey man, just have a stiff drink. You'll be fine. Like, why do you have anxiety? And I was like, no, you don't understand. This is kind of an out of body experience for me.
Yeah. This is not something that you can manage.
Right.
Yeah. Just talking yourself out of it. It's a chemical imbalance or an actual physical injury. Yeah.
And I'm like like you, I'm in media and I'll talk in front of 50,000 people and I'll feel right at home. But for whatever reason, I'm getting anxiety about just being in a classroom, or whatever, because what if I get sick? What if people notice me? Then it's kind of like, I don't get to be the JR that I want to be. So anyway, going back to this experimental thing is I remember them saying to me like, hey, you're going to go get a brain scan. You're going to do a thermal scan. This is now kind of like common practice, but even the doctors were like, well, this is kind of a theory, but I went to this place called Amen Clinic. And what they saw that the part of your brain that is supposed to say, okay, you get anxiety or you get depression, that the other part of your brain goes, no, you're going to be fine. That balances out. That part of the brain that balances out for me was underperforming. And you can actually see it, a thermal, like the side of your brain that's like trying to like scare you is running like white hot. Like you can see it in the thermal. It's pretty wild. And now they see it a lot with football players. But the thing that I was like, man, I don't want to take medication. I mean, I've never done that. I mean, I barely take Tylenol, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
same.
And I've never had any worries and been carefree. And, it's always been like kind of a send it type of guy. And the way they explained it to me is what you just said, which makes so much sense. He goes, hey, listen, this is like, my doctor was like, I have diabetes. It sucks to prick my finger every single day, but I'd rather live. You know what I'm saying? And so I that really, because, thinking about you having leukemia or, what someone having a sickness is, I love that you say I live with cancer and living with cancer. I think it's on your Instagram profile. Mm-hmm. And it's really cool because people don't understand, like once you get down with the treatment, you're still living with the situation. And like you said, meds for the rest of your life. And I remember thinking to myself, well, I mean, meds for the rest of my life, how's that going to affect the rest of my life? And it basically came down to, it's annoying, but I'd rather live. And I'd rather be able to be places, go places, and not have anxiety meltdowns and whatnot. But I really like the way you put that, because that's something that really helped me get through those times of like, well, this is my life now and it's altering. Right. It's life, Right.
Yeah. I think that is the hardest or one of the most difficult parts of having like a chronic condition, which I would consider yours a chronic condition, is coming to terms with the fact that this is going to be for literally the rest of your life. Yeah. And so for me, diagnosed at 16, I really like goals and then meeting them and moving on. I was like my math brain, there's one answer and find the solution and it's done. And so for this to be like open-ended, okay, well, you're going to have this medication and it's just hopefully going to keep it at a controlled level for, hopefully 5 to 10, 15 years, but you're never going to like meet the goal. You're never going to be cancer free. Yeah. That was like, but I just want to get there. Right. It's like, no, this is just how it's going to be. And I think it's, you're much better off, and it's not like you're settling, but when you understand that you can have a high quality of life while living with a chronic, condition, that's when you're kind of free. Like, yeah, this is my life. This is what I'm going to do every single day. So how do I make the best of this situation?
Well, let's talk about how you made the best of the situation, because you're kind of a badass. And, I only know you through Instagram, but I'm just saying I've kind of looked up on some stories on you. I was going to do some research for this. You decide, hey, I love wakeboarding. I want to try to go pro. When does this, how old are you? How far after being diagnosed do you make the move to Orlando?
So for people listening, that's the mecca of wakeboarding at the time. I had Parks Bonifay was on my podcast a few weeks ago. I've gotten to know him over the years. Oh, yay. So anyway, I just talked to Parks a couple days ago when I was in Florida. Love him. So for whatever reason, I absolutely fall in love with wakeboarding when I'm like 12, 13, 14. I was a show skier. So I did like all the crazy carny stuff on the water, the pyramids, swivel skiing, jumping barefoot, all that stuff.
You and Parks are very alike in that then.
Yes, exactly.
That's pretty cool. I like that.
Exactly. We are doubles partners in show skiing. We're going to make our big debut here one of these years. But I fell in love with wakeboarding. It kind of encompassed all the things that I was into: gymnastics, water sports. I was kind of a tomboy. And so I was like 14, 15. I'm like, I want to be a professional wakeboarder. And I really had no idea what that meant. Mm-hmm. I just knew that's what I wanted to do. And so before I was diagnosed, I came up with this idea. Okay, I'll graduate high school early and I'll move to Orlando, the mecca of wakeboarding, the wakeboarding industry. And no one in my small little high school had ever graduated early. I think it's kind of a common thing now with online classes and that type of thing, but it just didn't really exist then. So I had talked about it, and it was kind of this like fantasy. But when I was diagnosed, and this can sound awful, I kind of got this like, no one can say no to me because I'm cancer girl. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to graduate high school early. And I walked in the principal's office and I told him what I wanted to do. And he's like, no one's ever done this before. And I was like, but we'll figure it out. And so he did. He figured it out. And I had like a English teacher who like doubled my workload. So enabled me to do a year's school in half the amount of time. And, you know, some other teachers helping me out, and we kind of got creative. And so I graduated high school early. And this is like 6 months after I had started feeling better. So it was like, I started feeling better, and it's like Orlando vision. So when I was 17, my older sister Tiff was 26, and she hadn't really no ties to Minnesota, or wasn't like locked down. She's like, I'll move to Orlando with you. So we just like got in the car and started driving. And we didn't know where we were going to live.
That's epic. I love this.
Yeah. We just like didn't know anyone in Orlando.
We just knew Disney World was there. We just knew Disney World and wakeboarding. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just kind of like couch surfed for a while and met people. And, you know, didn't know anyone with a boat. So I was wakeboarding at the cable park, and meeting a ton of people there, and slowly just like built a network. And, you know, that grew over time. And I had, a number of moments with wakeboarding. I mean, there was like a full year where I'd quit and like given up on the dream when I was 19, mainly because I didn't grow up like competing, and I saw how far I'd like advanced, you know, how good these chicks were at wakeboarding, and they had been doing it and competing since they were 12, 13. I mean, pretty much everyone on the pro tour.
A lot of people won't know what I'm talking about. Were you in the Dallas Friday era, or is she younger, older? What?
So Dallas did not. It's weird. Dallas stopped competing right before I started competing on the pro tour, and then she kind of came back right after I stopped competing.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So we never really rode together. It's funny, when I was down in Orlando just this past weekend, I ran into Dallas, and she's like, let's wakeboard. I'm like, I'm like, Dallas, you and I have never actually wakeboarded together. She's like, I know, it's so weird. So she was like prior to me, but she was someone that I always like, obviously she was the GOAT.
Right.
And so it was like, you know, she was my idol.
Yeah.
And then I started wakeboarding, and she, you know, she had a couple kids and was just taking a break at the time.
Still a stud, by the way.
Then she got back into it afterwards, and it was like nothing had changed. So yeah, there were some times when I was certainly discouraged in wakeboarding and knew that I didn't have the experience. Not to mention, when I moved to Orlando, gas was $5 a gallon. It was like, I didn't have money to train. Yeah, it was insane. 2008, it was just crazy. So like riding, I got really good at riding a cable, but at that time, cable stuff wasn't as big. So
wasn't at all.
So it was, it was interesting, but then I, you know, gained some confidence and just kind of through mentorship realized like I didn't have to win. Like I didn't have to win every contest to be a successful person in the wakeboarding industry. And that's where I kind of found my role and my, you know, where I belonged in the space was, you know, this advocate. I was the person they called when they needed someone to do stunts in a movie, or, you know, video shoots, photo shoots, this different like creative stuff. I was more of a personality. Mind you, still competing, but not winning contests.
When did it pop for you in Orlando where you said, oh my gosh, I can actually make a living at this. I can get sponsors and all that. Like, what was the defining moment on that? Was it just a connection you made, or?
I think it was, I started working for the pro tour. So I was like, okay, how do I get close to this? Right.
Smart.
Like it was just, So I started working for the Pro Tour and then asked my bosses if I could compete in the amateur division at nationals and worlds. There was not an amateur division on the Pro Tour, but those were part of the circuit. So they're like, sure, whatever. So I won the amateur women's national title, and then I got second at worlds. And that's when I was like, okay, maybe I can like do this. And I was already sponsored by Liquid Force. And so then the following year on my 21st birthday, I competed in my first pro contest. Oh, wow. And then got picked up by Spy, and was working with a couple other like smaller brands, but it was probably winning the nationals in the amateur women's division.
I love it. I think that's so cool.
Yeah.
I'm such a nerd when it comes, and people listening to this podcast, we've had all kinds of people on here, but the wakeboarding stuff, I dive into it so much. And I have to tell you a funny story, because I remember do you know Cowboys Orlando, the bar there?
Oh yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you have to like burn your clothes when you leave there.
I lived on Clear Lake, so
okay, gotcha. So I worked for
a couple times, but
I worked for K92.3, the country station in Orlando. This is 2014, I think. 2014, I moved from San Diego there, took a job. It's a good opportunity. So I hosted 2 nights a week at Cowboys. Well, one day I'm sitting in there, and all I know about wakeboarding and professionals is what I've seen in, the Butter Effect and videos like that were just like iconic. And we would watch them as we were going out to Parker, Arizona to play on the river for the weekend. And be like, man, that'd be so cool if we could do a Rayleigh or whatever. And like, we weren't even close.
Superman.
Yeah, we were horrible. So anyway, we were like, let's do it. And so I'm sitting there and I'm hosting, and I look over and I see the guy from every video I've ever seen ever, Parks Bonifay.
Parks. Yeah.
And I go, there's no way. And so I walk up to him and I go, what's up, dude? And I said, I'm JR, I'm hosting. He's like, oh, you work for K92.3? That's so cool, man. And like had this weird connection where he's like, yeah, I've heard you before. And that was kind of not a starstruck moment, but like, oh, cool, I can actually talk to this guy. Like, he's not just in a video type of thing.
Right. Like he's approachable. And
yeah, super approachable. His girlfriend at the time was super nice too. And so we got to talking or whatever. I was like, man, let me know if, I don't have a boat out here, but let me know if you ever need a guy to bring some gas cans out with you or whatever. So I end up going out with him and Danny Harf. And so I'm like, now
another legend.
I was like, yeah, I go, now this is getting weird. And so we go on their boat, and Danny's like, hey, I'm going to do a couple runs. I don't know if he had a contest coming up or a shoot or something like that they were going to do, but he's like, hey, I'm going to do a couple of runs, and then, White's glassy, and then you can go. I'm like, yeah, sweet. He goes, and we know him as a legend. It's just like, what? I mean, all these tricks that he's doing, I've never even seen it. And when you see this stuff in person, you're like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And I go, you know what? I'm not going to wakeboard today. I think I'm going to sit this one out.
Classic.
Let's go ahead and get the wake surfers out, and we'll roll that, because I'm definitely not going after that guy. And I just remember being on the boat with those two guys, and them being so cool. And then my repay to them was like, I'll take you guys to all the country concerts. We'll go to all that stuff. So that was like our little give and take, but such cool dudes, and such a cool, I wish I lived in that area when wakeboarding was blowing up so much, because it sounds like a really cool era and really cool place to be during that time, because all I had is exposure was X Games. You'd see it on ESPN on the weekends sometimes. And it was always the boats you dreamed of having, the tricks you wish you could do, the boards, the gear, and all that stuff, and that lifestyle. It just was really cool. And I love hearing it from a female perspective too, of doing that, because I really only know the male side of it. But now seeing, people like Ashley Kidd, who crush it on wake surfers, and it's insane. I remember seeing her on the lake in Lake Austin. My folks live in Austin, so seeing her on Austin, I'm like, Ashley Kidd, what's up? Hey, weird guy number 1,000 that's come up to me on the lake today. But it was just, I don't know. I just think that lifestyle is so cool. And I know there's challenges with it. But again, going back to living with cancer, think about, chasing a dream like that. Who knows if you would have been that fearless, without this diagnosis, do you ever think about it that way?
Yeah, I get that. I get that question all the time.
Okay, we can skip over it then.
No, no. I'm saying it's something I have to think about.
Right.
Right. Like, and it's a totally valid question, but I think people are surprised when I answer, like, I was pretty intense before my diagnosis. And I think that intensity and that like hunger and passion is actually what allowed me to succeed through my diagnosis and, it ongoing versus like diagnosed, got passionate,
Gotcha.
perspective changed and then succeeded. I think, there's no way that facing death at 16 and I got really, really sick, for a number of months. It was pretty hairy there. There's no way that doesn't change your perspective. But I was, a pretty zesty child and human before that. So I don't know how it would have, panned out. We never know what the difference is, but I know that, it did enable me to say, well, we don't know how long I'm going to live, so I'm going to move to Orlando. Well, we just don't know. And so I've got to go for it. So whether I would have done that or not, I don't know. But I know that, the way I was before that definitely helped me get through that time.
That's a good way to put it. I mean, thinking about you being zesty as a kid probably gave you like a lot of strength to get through the treatments and all that.
Yes.
I love that.
Exactly.
So let's go down the list of your resume here. Then you, we'll go one more wakeboarding question. Then you're in, was it Wake Brothers, the MTV show?
Oh yeah.
Tell me this, because these guys, that show was addicting and ridiculous at the same time.
So ridiculous.
So how do you come about that? You're just buddies with these guys and they're like, hey, we need you to shoot?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was friends with Bob and Phil for a number of years, but then I got asked to be on the show, and then Bob and I start dating before we start filming. So like, you're going to be a character on the show. Bob and I start dating, and then they're like, oh, you're going to be on the show less now.
Really?
Because we don't want Bob to have a girlfriend on the show.
Oh, gotcha.
So it wasn't until like episode 6 where Bob and I had our first date.
Gotcha.
And our first kiss. So it was kind of a weird scenario.
Oh, Hollywood.
I know, right?
Love it.
But I mean, it was a wild experience for sure.
I bet.
And I don't think no one wanted to do a season 2, so that didn't happen. But it was interesting to say the least. Absolutely. A lot of dynamics with those two brothers.
Bob Sovin, your ex, unbelievable. Yeah. I did not see that coming, but he sounds like a very, very charismatic guy for sure.
Oh, he is. He's a great dude. We're still friends. So he's a ton of fun.
So when do you come into the hosting realm of things? What would your job title be with the Vikings?
On-air personality.
Okay. So are you doing things on camera in the studio as far as like on the Jumbotron, or are you doing stuff for their social media platforms or everything?
So pre-COVID for 2 seasons, they had just built a new training facility, including this state-of-the-art studio. It's beautiful. So Vikings Entertainment Network operates out of there. It's just a wing of the Vikings, or a branch of the Vikings that does all of their media. So prior to COVID for 2 seasons, I was in that studio hosting content. And then I had content that aired in stadium on game days, and then content that went on social media. Now, because of COVID, I'm not a full-time Vikings employee, so I do not go in that facility. Oh. A lot of people that even work for the Vikings do not go into the practice facility. So I'm just on the field for home games, creating content for their social media and Vikings.com.
Yeah, your reel is fantastic. I like how the way it opens as they're scoring a touchdown behind you too. I was watching that. It's very well done. Very well done.
Yeah, sometimes you luck out,
Oh man, I remember doing a broadcast at a horse track in Del Mar. And I was on the air, and the horse
the track at Del Mar.
Yeah,
by the way.
The horse that I bet on I was doing like a break over like some I don't know, Plain White T's song or something like that. just whatever. Like, hey, here's this song coming up, and I see my horse coming as it's happening, and I'm like, hold on, I'm about to win some money. My boss was like, dude, you gotta like sign off before you start talking about betting and all this stuff. But I was like, hey, come on,
makes it authentic.
It was good. Yeah, I won. So, and as far as how do you team up with Polaris then?
So, by
By the
Well, I
way, you have
moved
all the
back.
cool brands, by the way. I'm a little jealous. You have all the cool brands that you're with. It's a little ridiculous.
I get to do a lot of really cool stuff. When I moved back from Orlando, I never thought I was going to move back to Minnesota, but I had, you know, decided, okay, I'm ready to be done wakeboarding, and I want to try to get into the TV space. If I don't try now, I'll beat myself up for not trying. And so after sending emails, sending letters, making calls to everyone and anyone in the television space for 2 years, in 1 week, I had an outdoors production company from Minneapolis call and the Minnesota Vikings call.
Wow.
In the same week. So it was super ironic. And they both go, hey, we have part-time jobs, not full-time. Let us know if you'd ever be interested in moving back to Minnesota. And so, I mean, when the Vikings called, generally you answer the phone and you make it happen. So that's what I did. I moved back to Minnesota, started working for the Vikings, started hosting a show called Made for the Outdoors. And then for that same production company, they needed a new female host for their show called Destination Polaris. So that's what you're referring to. So we contract and work with Polaris marketing team to create this show, and we just get to off-road and ride side-by-sides all over the world.
Right.
It's a blast. I mean, trust me, it's
go ahead.
Long days, but it's super long days. And I mean, the on-camera stuff is about 10% of what actually goes on into the production and the post-production. But it's a blast.
Where is a area in the world that you were like, I can't believe I'm off-roading in this place? Is there something that sticks out to you?
Oh, I mean, there have been just so many beautiful places. I just got back from a trip to Maine. I'd never been upstate in Maine, and that was just spectacular. I loved riding in Southwest Oregon, so in Coos Bay. There are sand dunes. You can actually, one of the only places in America where you can ride right on the beach.
Okay.
And it's kind of like dunes on the beach, but then there are these like little patches of like rainforest, like literally like little patches of trees. And then you just bust around in the sand. It's very cool. I mean, there are just countless cool spots. And the cool thing about riding side by sides is those get you places that you can't get otherwise.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. I grew up going to Glamis and places like that.
Oh, right on.
Like
yeah,
that.
so that's I mean, that's Mecca of the side by side world. Yeah,
it's wild for sure. So give me all right. How about this? What's been your roughest shoot? Like where you're like, man, I don't know how we're getting. This is like getting a little hairy.
Oh, well, I can't divulge all the details, but it was actually south of Glamis. Okay. It was in Ocotillo Wells. Actually, south. So we did a day's shoot in Ocotillo Wells, and then we went south and did a shoot just south of Ocotillo Wells. And one thing after another went wrong. And generally, it's like we just get her done. But this was like, it was just bad. Like it was really, really bad. And I'll put it this way. So like, we get done with day 2, which day 1 was awful. Day 2 was awful. And by for no reason, like not because we didn't do our jobs or the people we were with didn't do their jobs, just bad luck. And we're driving up from like near the border, and we're driving through, me and the 2 photographers and all of our gear, we're in a minivan. We're driving through the, whatever border patrol station. We weren't across the border, but it's, you know,
I know where it's at,
few miles from the border. And we're driving through, and they stop us, and we're just like, you have to be kidding. And they're like, we're in a rental minivan. They're like, this minivan's been flagged for drug trafficking.
Oh my God.
And so we're just like, after like the worst 2 days that we've ever had, and like very stressful, we're just like, of course, here we are. Which didn't end up being anything. I mean, they knew it wasn't us. It was a previous.
So you got away with your drugs. You got away with your drugs. Yeah,
exactly. So we smuggled the drugs in and everything's fine. No, so that was definitely the worst. It monsooned while we were there.
It's wild out there.
It doesn't rain. It doesn't rain in the desert, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
Those were just probably the least of our problems, but that was just a couple of what went wrong. But other than that, I mean, it's besides long days,
Yeah.
We can always make television.
Absolutely. And that sometimes is the best television when things start going a little array like that.
Totally. And what I always say is like the show behind the show is always better than the real thing. Like all the stuff you can't show on TV is actually like so interesting, but
it's funny. I totally agree with that. And one of the things, I'll give you a story, not to make this about me because it's about you, but
no, I love it.
I was on a Nickelodeon show called Victorious, and it was basically so I'm 36. So it was basically our version. I would assume that you and I are similar in age, but it was our Saved by the Bell. And it was called, so that was like, that was kind of what it was, but they went to this musical school or whatever. And so it was this girl named Victoria Justice and Ariana Grande and a couple other ones that you and I know. But I remember the show was totally behind the show because it was like the best set that I've ever worked on, because it was, first of all, they can't go past 8 hours because they're kids. They're minors at the time. They have to break every like hour and a half, I think it is, because they have to do school. So we're just over we're just at craft services killing it. Me and the people that are not 18, under 18.
Right.
And this is like 10 years ago. And I'm like way older than all these kids. But the funny part was I had a conversation with Ariana Grande because she was singing, in the background, just like, doing all these crazy like Mariah Carey runs. And I remember talking to her and I'm like, so Ariana, didn't know she was Ariana Grande. I just was like, hey, Ariana, I was like, I said, are you going to like, do you sing too? Like, are you being a singer? She's like, nah, I don't want to be a singer. I like acting too much. And then fast forward 5 years or whatever amount of years, and she's like the biggest pop star ever. I'm like,
yeah, like
when did she change her mind? I'm glad she did, but geez, like it was just, that was there were so many cool conversations, especially with like young actors like that. It was really cool to talk to them and see their parents like right by. I mean, the show definitely was behind the show, and more than anything, forget the SAG card, forget my credits on IMDb. The fact that Ariana Grande told me she had no interest in singing, that was the best part of the shoot. So
my gosh.
That's what I took away from that whole experience, was like, I don't care that I'm working on Sunset Boulevard. I don't care. This is Nickelodeon. Like I saw growing up, that was like probably the coolest thing to see someone just be like, it's like, I don't know. I'd be like talking to Will Ferrell and I'm saying he has no interest in acting. Like it was just crazy. I couldn't believe it. Seeing her, but yeah, like you said, the show is definitely behind the show for sure. Another thing I saw on your Instagram or reel or one of the two, totally stalked you. Sorry. Got to prepare. I call it preparation. So tell me, do you have any type of relationship with Nick Schwartz, being such a big Vikings fan?
I have met Nick a number of times. We have mutual friends. He's a Minnesotan. He comes here often. And so I mean, I've sat at the bar with him numerous times, and we obviously have linked up at the Vikings games, but I'm not close with him. We don't text each other, like keep in touch. But a really cool dude.
Yeah. I mean, seems cool. I mean, I know he's kind of like turned things. I think he's kind of mellowed things out a little bit.
100%.
But I bet being at a bar with him back in the day was probably pretty wild.
Pretty wild. Well, I've been at a bar with him on both sides of his journey. So very wild years ago. And then since he's kind of, changed his life a little bit, he just seems happier, healthier.
Yeah.
Like not that he seemed quite unhappy or whatever. I mean, I remember the first time I saw him after he had, stopped drinking or really cut back. And I was like, you look really good. Yeah. And I think he was like, thanks. Like, it's nice, when someone recognizes that, but I was like, dang, yeah, you seem good. So, he's a cool, down to earth, fun guy. I mean, about as fun as you could be when people are running up to you every minute and a half.
Oh, I mean, he just blew
asking
up
for a photo or
he just blew up. I mean, his story of Adam Sandler seeing him as he's laying in bed. Adam Sandler's laying in bed with his wife and sees Nick Swartzen's special on Comedy Central and says, I got to get a hold of that guy to put him in my movies. And now he's like in every Sandler movie. I mean,
I didn't know that.
Oh, you didn't know that? That's it. That's his. He's spoken on it a few times, but the story was he was doing a Comedy Central special. And Adam Sandler was laying in bed with his wife, saw it and said, I really like this guy's comedy. Let's reach out. Maybe we can do some projects together. that's how he links up. And that's why he's with Spade and Rock and all those guys in all his movies. It's because he just thought he was a really funny guy. So I always think, I wonder if Sandler got to him and was like, hey, dude, you're 48-hour Vegas binges and stuff like that. That, by the way, this is what these are stories that he's told.
Sure.
I wonder if he ever got into his ear. It's like, hey man, you kind of got a golden ticket here. You're super talented. Let's maybe tone it down a little bit. I know he had like that near death experience with drinking, but still, man, geez.
Yeah. And I think he had, I think a big part of it was a friend of his passed away. And I think that kind of, changed his perspective and kind of struck a chord with him and changed stuff. I actually have a funny story about Spade. Okay. So this is kind of bringing everything full circle. So when I was dating Bob, and I'm still this way, I cannot sit. I can't watch TV. I can't watch movies. Like, I hate it. I hate sitting and like watching something. I have to be doing something. And so when I was dating Bob, I never wanted to watch movies. The only movie I would watch was Joe Dirt. Like, that's it. Yeah. If you want to watch a movie, it's got to be Joe Dirt. So then it becomes like this joke in that I'm obsessed with Spade, David Spade. And Bob and I go to, what's the music festival at Del Mar Racetrack? Oh, Kaboo. It's called Kaboo.
Okay.
So this is like 5 years ago, and we go to Kaboo, and like just by happenstance, like we're in Del Mar staying with friends, and they're like, we're going to Kaboo, whatever. Okay, VIP tickets, we're there. See Tom Petty like 3 days before he died.
Love it.
Great time. So we're pretty lit. And Bob is like, the concerts are over, whatever, we're all leaving. He's like, oh my God. Like, not very many people back in like the VIP area. He's like, Lex, you're never going to believe who's sitting on the picnic table right behind you. And I'm just, who? He's like, it's fucking Spade. I'm like,
wow.
Yes. This is, and he's just like, I can't believe this. Because neither of us like get starstruck or care, but it's hilarious that like, of course, Joe Dirt, David Spade is right behind you. Of course he is. And so I go talk to David Spade, and he has.
Of course you do. A little liquid courage right there, or what?
And I never go up to people, whatever. Yeah. I mean, and we're backstage. It's super mellow, like no one's fanning out. I'm just like, what's up, Dave? Yeah, he didn't care about me at all. But I thought that was funny. Like, just awesome. ironic that Amazing. All the stars aligned. Yeah, pretty fun.
Well, speaking of being lit and meeting a celebrity, I'll give you a story, and this is not a one-up to you anyway. It's just being able to relate to you on this front is the fact that I was in Orlando, when I worked there, we went to Toby Keith's Bar and Grill that they had opened up now where that big Ferris wheel is. I don't know I don't know where
the Orlando Eye.
Yeah, the Orlando
Eye.
So,
Drive.
So that had just started, and so they had like little restaurants, and they opened Toby Keith's Bar and Grill, and so we got, as the country station, we got invited out, and a couple people performed there, but we got to talking to the general manager, and he's like, yeah, I just moved down here from New York. He goes, I used to run Justin Timberlake's restaurant in New York City. We're like, oh, that's cool. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why would you come down here to do Toby Keith's Bar and Grill? There's like 50 of these across and by the way, they all open up and close. Like, that's what happens. Toby Keith is licensing his name out. He has nothing to do with the restaurant. So anyway, so we're talking to him and my boss at the time. And so fast forward to probably, I don't know, 7 months later, we are in New York City, and we're doing this Luke Bryan album launch thing. And so we're at this hotel, and we're like, hey, let's hit that Bryan guy up. Like, he said that, didn't he say Timberlake's restaurant was like around here? And we're kind of boozed up. And so he goes, yeah, let's hit him up. So we text him, and he goes, yeah, I'm working right now. And I go, well, where is it? And it's literally 3 blocks from us. So,
no way.
So we're like, all right, let's go check it out. So we go there, and it's called the Hunt and Fish Club. So if you're in New York City, definitely go check it out. It's really, really good.
Cool.
So we go there, and you walk in, like, New York, every restaurant you go in is like, you got to get to the door, kind of, it's like narrow, and you get in there, and then it kind of opens up. It's just beautiful inside. Yeah. So it's beautiful inside. And there's like this little bar section, and then the main dining room. So we're in the little bar section. He kind of like roped it off for us. He's like, yeah, I'm going to bring you everything out on the menu right now. And so he brings everything out. And we're trying everything, and then some other radio people come down, and we're just hitting the drinks. So I go, hey man, can I, use the restroom? He's like, yeah, it's over there. You got to go down those stairs. He goes, but just give me like 5 minutes. I'm like, what, dude? I gotta pee. Like, give me 5 minutes.
Yeah,
And he's
what?
like, just wait here, okay? And I'm like, all right. So man, I'm waiting. All of a sudden, coming around the corner, here comes Justin Timberlake.
No way.
And I'm not a starstruck guy either. Yeah, at his own restaurant. And so what he has there is if you go down the stairs by the restroom, there's a bunch of different private meeting rooms. So he was meeting with one of his old NSYNC managers and some other business partners, because I recognized his NSYNC manager from a documentary that I saw, and him coming out. And me would normally not do this or go up to people, just like you said about Spade. I go, Timberlake, just like that.
And, my man.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like,
that's pretty much what I did to Spade.
Yeah. And he's like, hey man, you having fun? I'm like, sure am. And it's just like, he just walked by into like, a caravan of Escalades or whatever and left.
Right.
And the guy that got us in is like, dude, what are you doing, bro? And I'm like, I'm sorry, man. It was just all of a sudden I watched $1 billion walk past me. I had to say something,
Yeah, whatever.
It was one of those moments too. It's like, yeah, if I probably had the drinks down, maybe not so many, I would have probably not done that, but it's a good story. What are you going to do? So where are you at now? Like, what's the next move for you?
Oh my God. Well, I'm insanely busy this fall. So
yes. Thank you for making time for me, by the way. I know that you fit me in, so I really do appreciate that.
Yes, I know it's been tough for us to link up.
No worries.
So in the middle of filming Destination Polaris, going all over for that, going all over for Made for the Outdoors, obviously in the middle of football season. So Vikings stuff going on. I also work for the CW Twin Cities, so shoots all the time for that. I also work for Shop HQ, which is a home shopping network. So I'm on there slinging outdoors gear and just like really fun stuff. It's a blast. Working the Fort Lauderdale Boat Show next week, which I'm stoked on. And then, spent the summer wakeboarding and wake surfing and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So really just trying to stay busy, trying to stay out of trouble, while always trying to, advance my career, hone my skill and get better every single day. Cause I came into this industry with pretty much certainly zero training, but little experience. So it's been a blast to, learn as I go and really, find my own way of doing things and putting my own spin and flair and stuff on writing and producing and directing and all the things that I do.
It's pretty incredible. I mean, just your life story aside, just watching your career and, I see it from 30,000 feet is, you're very, very good. So keep that up for sure. Yeah. I mean, working in the media, I don't know if that means anything, but I work in the same industry and I think absolutely killing it. So I was really impressed by everything. And I really wanted to have you on the show because I think you're super talented.
Well, I'm stoked to be here. And it does mean something because obviously being in the industry, you can watch people with a critical eye and having, like I said, little experience when I started, I do appreciate the feedback.
You're kind of Aaron Andrews, Brooke Burke, all tied together. Because you do.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's really cool. I mean, the diversity of the things you do is you can do anything. I love it. I just think it's really exciting for you, and I'm excited to see where you go. I mean, where you haven't been already. So it's is there someone that you do? Is there an ultimate goal of like, hey, I'd like to work and do this full time if I could just do one thing?
It's so hard. A lot of people ask too, what's the end game here? And for me, I just never knew that I was going to be this busy with so many different things in television. Like, this worked. Now I should probably figure out what's next. But at the same time, it's like, I don't want to get off a winning horse. Right. So like, I have so many amazing things going on right now. I want to make sure I'm doing those as well as I can.
Right.
I'd love to be on, the sidelines for Fox, NFL on Fox. That would probably, be a major thing for me. Of course, there are many hosting jobs. I did turn my TV on for the first time in 6 weeks last night, and I watched 2 episodes of Top Chef.
Really?
I'd love to host Top Chef.
Are you a foodie?
So I'm coming for you, Padma. Oh yeah, I love to eat.
Really?
Oh God, yeah.
What's your go-to? I mean, if you could pick a restaurant or pick a cuisine right now, what is it?
Sushi.
All day,
Yeah.
huh?
Yeah.
You really are a
Sushi,
fish.
for sure. Yeah.
You really are. Love the water.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I mean, there are many, fun hosting jobs that if we're talking about like what's the dream or like what's the goal, those would be it. But yeah, I mean, I love sports. I grew up absolutely loving football. So sticking around the NFL would be really fun for me.
You're doing great. I love it. Mine was always a takeover for Letterman, but Colbert beat me to it. That was literally in my yearbook.
Takeover for him.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. He'll get old at some point. See what happens.
Just got to outlive him.
Listen, I appreciate you. Hey, plug your socials and your shows real quick because you need to, because it's awesome.
Sure. Cool. So shows Made for the Outdoors is on Bally Sports as well as Sportsman Channel. Destination Polaris is on Bally Sports nationwide. CW Twin Cities, if you're local. Shop HQ, if you want to do some home shopping. What are my other jobs? Obviously, watch the Vikings on Sunday. Skull, baby.
My co-host is a huge Vikings fan, and we always give her crap for not having a kicker, for you guys not having a kicker. And it's a sore subject. Now. He's doing okay now.
It's a sore subject, but I mean, the past couple of weeks, like, all right, whatever.
Yeah, here we go. There you are.
It's nuts. But yeah, please wish us luck. If you're not a Vikings fan, if you are, Skull. And then check me out on social at Alexa Score. Pretty simple. Instagram's my main channel.
What a great sports name too. Alexa Score.
I know.
You got to score in sports to win. God, you're on fire.
And it's not a stage name. It's the real deal.
No, your stage name is Cinnamon, you said, right? Before we started?
Yeah. That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, it's a different podcast. We'll get to that later. Hey, listen, thanks so much for your time today. You are very inspiring. You are very down to earth. I couldn't have been more impressed with things that I saw before we talked and then now that we've talked. And I hope we get to link up in person at some point. Stay in touch. Teach me how to do my 360 on my wake surf. I've got the boat. I know you were looking for one when you were in Orlando. I got one down here. So we can go out and have fun with that. But thank you so much, Alexa. You're awesome.
You're awesome. Thanks so much for having me.
All right. We'll talk soon. Okay.
All right.